Turbo diesel air cleaner brackets and why they fail. Anyone who I know has a 617 turbo diesel, whether it's in a 78 through 80 300 SD or a 1982 through 85 300D turbo or an 81 through 85 300 SD, unless you have a California version of the last two cars I mentioned from 1985 that has the can style air cleaner in the front right fender. In that case, you don't have this issue. We'll experience this at some point. And we're going to talk about all the ways that air cleaners fail and how to prevent that. Air cleaner brackets fail and how to prevent that from happening. So the most common issue by and large is that the brackets that that go on the car actually break. And this is the rear part of the bracket. This is usually where they break. And by the way, this is a unicorn genuine Mercedes bracket, which they don't make anymore. And we're going to talk about what to do to fix one of these in case they do break, by the way. Usually they like to break right here where this bolt is. And they will fracture and then the end will break off, but it'll stay attached to the air cleaner via this rubber buffer. One of the reasons why it is so absolutely essential to change your motor mounts is because the vibrations from the motor mounts or even a bad engine shock will transmit vibrations into this bracket and fracture the end of it. Snip, like somebody took a pair of metal shears. There's some other things that'll cause it too, though. If you have an engine that is a really bad idle, either from bad injectors or from a bad rack damper pin that's causing the air cleaner to vibrate against the valve cover, you know, the that you get at idle on some of these 300D turbos, you need to adjust your idle speed and or replace your rack damper pin to get the car to quit vibrating. You also may need to adjust your valves and you may need to adjust the idle screw so you can find an RPM range where the car doesn't, where this thing vibrates against the valve cover. And some cars just do that. They just do that, but that'll break it as well. So resolving motor mount issues, fine-tuning your idle so it's the best possible idle it can be, whether that involves replacing your rack damper pin, rebuilding your injectors, adjusting your valves, or all three, and setting your idle speed to an optimal idle speed are all going to keep this thing from breaking. The next thing that we need to be aware of is why the rubber mounts fail or why they strip out in these threads. These threads where the rubber mounts that hold the air cleaner on often strip so that the mounts can't be attached anymore. Now, if you have that problem and nothing else is broken, you simply put a nut at the bottom, use a ratcheting 10mm wrench, cinch it down really good, and you're good to go. But if you see that the mount is also visibly deteriorating, there's a reason for that too, and it's because on those little rubber mounts there's supposed to be a heat shield. And one of my least favorite part brands, which I will only buy this item from this brand, makes those heat shields. And that brand is MTC, straight out of the People's Nationalist Republic of China, otherwise known as Taiwan. And they have a little drain hole, and the little drain hole needs to face either backwards or towards the passenger fender so any liquids drain out of there and they don't rot the mount. But for the most part, these stupid little heat shields will keep the mounts from disintegrating due to heat. And if you don't think they work, well, let me tell you something. I've pulled a lot of 300D turbos out of storage and put them back on the road, and most of the cars that had heat shields on their mounts sometimes had mounts that were really, really, really old. Like we're going back to the 1980s and they were running through the 90s and they're still good even today. You know, if I get a genuine Mercedes heat shield mount heat shield, I'll put it on. But you should be putting these little MTC heat shields on the mounts. Now, people ask me, where do you get your mounts from? Well, I buy them from Mercedes for $16 a piece. Why? Because $48 is not a lot of money to spend if you don't want to do a job 8 to 10 times over the course of 4 or 5 years. I used genuine Mercedes mounts and heat shields and a genuine Mercedes bracket on my personal 300D, and the car does not idle that well. I actually need to pull the injection pump out again because Accurate Diesel did not do that good of a job on my pump, unfortunately, and get it back to them for repairs. But even with my terrible idle from that car, the mount has still not broken. The heat shield is still not separated. I mean, the buffers have still not separated. You know, now caveat here, if you have a car that's leaking a lot of oil and has a ton of blow-by, another thing you could do to protect your mounts is where they go into the air cleaner with the little 10mm nut, get a copper washer from an M116 or M117 valve cover and put it down there too to seal them to keep oil from leaking through the threads. You're still going to get a lot of oil leaks out of there if you have a tired engine, but hey, it's going to protect your mounts. Now, what do we do when these things fail? Well, if you have an original mount, don't throw it away. Go find a welding shop. There are pretty much welding shops left everywhere in the United States except for California. Just kidding. EPA joke. A good welder should be able to reinforce this area. You don't want to just weld the crack. What you want to do is you actually want to get like a piece of square metal that's reinforced and weld it over here and then drill the 8mm hole through. Now, what about the aftermarket mounts? Again, let's go back to MTC. You know, Mercedes trash from China. The problem with the MTC mounting brackets, I should say, is that the holes do not line up, and the spot welds where they cinch this guy to this guy are not very good. So if you have to use an MTC mount, here's my advice. Take this hole and expand it by ovulating it, okay? Got to make it into an oval shape so it lines up better. Second of all, go to the same welding shop and have them reinforce this to this. Like have them just go all the way around. Right here, right here, right here. Weld it up. You know, and then last but not least, just put metal backing nuts on from the get-go and make sure you test fit it to the car first. Because the MTC mounts align so badly that I've had cars where I've had to take a pry bar to put them on. Let that sink in. A pry bar. Why? You know, it doesn't make any sense. Now, people, we're going to make a slight note here about aftermarket solutions here, like a K&N air cleaner or stuff like that. I don't really like some of the aftermarket air cleaners. I'll tell you why. I mean, not only are they not original to the car or whatever, but a lot of them let way too much dirt in. They let dirt actually bypass the air filter, and they get into your cylinders and wear your cylinders out. So if you have a throwaway mentality about your air filter in your car, you're driving the wrong car. But second of all, you can make the MTC mounts work with just a little bit of extra mental energy. The crux of it is this, though. You need to put a filter on the car that's not going to let a bunch of dirt in. It isn't just going to fall off. And I've seen so many cars, the K&N like snorkel filters just fall off, and then you're running around with unfiltered air getting in through the car. That's not a good thing. You know, it really isn't. You know, and I don't know. I don't think the original design is actually that bad. It's just that most people are lazy and they don't want to maintain the car right, and then it all spirals out of control from there. Okay, guys, I hope you liked this video. If your feelings got hurt because I told you your K&N air filter is junk, then we will send you a good used gaskets, used rag that has been used by some cowboy in Texas who was heartbroken because his favorite cow passed away, and it'll be pre-soaked with tears for you. I will see you guys in the next video, and enjoy getting your air cleaner bracket buttoned up. And don't throw those original brackets away. Fix them. It's the better solution, okay?
much.